They said the man hadn't spoken a single word since he was wheeled into the emergency room. His face was expressionless, his eyes blank. No name, no ID, no reaction, just silence. For 3 days, doctors ran tests, nurses came and went, specialists whispered theories in the hallway. Trauma, dementia, psychosis. But nothing made him speak. He just stared at the ceiling, breathing, blinking, but not living. Until one night, when a nurse stayed behind long after her shift was over. And he finally spoke. Just one sentence. But it was enough to change everything. Before we dive into this hauntingly beautiful story of silence, secrets, and second chances, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more powerful, emotional stories that stay with you long after they end. Now, let's begin. Nina Alvarez had been working back-to-back shifts at St. Teresa's Hospital for nearly a year. She wasn't just tired, she was burnt out, underpaid, and constantly running on caffeine and empathy. But she loved nursing. Even when her feet ached and her paycheck barely paid the rent for her small studio apartment, Nina stayed. Because it mattered. People mattered. She was 28, single, and had no family left except her younger brother who was halfway across the country, studying on a scholarship she helped him apply for. Her life revolved around the hospital now, the humming machines, the hurried footsteps, the whispered prayers behind blue curtains. The silent man arrived on a rainy Thursday night, soaked and bruised, found unconscious near an abandoned construction site. He had no ID, no phone, no wallet. Just an old photograph tucked inside his coat, a picture of a young boy with a toy plane smiling at the camera. The ER labeled him John Doe and moved him into room 409. Physically, he was fine. No broken bones, no signs of internal damage. But he didn't speak, didn't write, didn't react to voices, just sat there in silence as if waiting for something or someone only he remembered. Most nurses were either too busy or too unnerved to stay long in his room. But Nina, she noticed something in his eyes. Not madness, not emptiness, pain. Deep, echoing pain. The kind that doesn't scream. It waits. On the third night of his admission, Nina was supposed to clock out at 7 p.m. She had been working a double shift, and her body screamed for rest. But when she walked past room 409 and glanced in, something stopped her. The man was still sitting up in bed, staring out the window, unmoving. Her heart nudged her. She stepped inside. "Hi," she said gently, pulling a chair near his bed. "You probably don't remember me. I've been checking on you the past few days. I'm Nina." No response. She sat anyway. "You know," she continued, "when I was a kid, my brother fell from a tree, cracked 2 ribs and bit through his tongue. He stopped talking for days. The doctor said it was trauma. But I think it was guilt. He thought he was going to die, and he didn't want me to see him weak." The man blinked but didn't move. I sat beside his bed and read stories out loud. Told him about school, about cartoons, anything. I didn't know if it helped, but one day he just looked at me and said, "You're not mad at me." And I cried for 2 hours. Nina looked at the man's face, searching for any flicker of recognition. "Nothing. I don't know what you've been through," she whispered, "but I'm here, and I'm not leaving just yet." Minutes turned into hours, the ward grew quiet, the shift changed. But Nina stayed, holding his hand in silence. At one point she dozed off in the chair beside him, her head resting on the edge of his bed. When she woke up, it was 2:47 a.m. The room was dark except for the soft glow of the hallway light creeping in through the open door. She rubbed her eyes, stretched her neck, and was about to leave when she heard it. A whisper. So faint. So broken. I lost him." Her heart slammed against her chest. She looked up. The man was still staring out the window, but his lips had moved. She stood up, breath caught in her throat. "Can you say that again?" she asked, stepping closer. The man turned to her, and for the first time since his arrival his eyes weren't empty. They were drowning. "I lost my son," Nina gasped. "You can talk! Oh my God, you can talk!" Tears spilled from his eyes, and he gripped her hand tightly. "I didn't mean to. I turned for just a second. The road was clear. And then—" He couldn't finish. Nina held his hand tighter. "Hey, it's okay, you're safe now." He cried for a long time. His body shook. Years of silence poured out in sobs and stutters. He told her his name was Daniel Cross. He had been a single father. His son Michael had gone missing 5 years ago during a trip to the park. One minute he was flying a toy plane. The next, gone. No leads, no ransom, just vanished. Daniel's life had crumbled. He lost his job, sold everything to keep searching, slept in shelters, scoured cities, until his body gave out, and he collapsed that rainy night, alone, soaked, and still holding the photo of the boy he couldn't stop loving. Nina sat with him until sunrise. The next morning, when the doctors and nurses found out he had spoken, the hospital buzzed with shock. News spread quickly. The mute man had spoken, and only to the poorest nurse on staff. Reporters came, psychologists visited, but Daniel spoke to no one else. Only Nina. She visited him daily, listened, encouraged, helped him write down details about his son. The police reopened the case. Old evidence was re-examined. A new facial recognition tool found a potential match in a foster database 2 states away. The boy had been placed under the name Jeremy Fields after being found, wandering alone near a highway. He had blocked out most of his memories due to trauma and never remembered his real name. But when they showed him the old photo, the one Daniel had kept in his coat pocket, the boy broke down. 2 weeks later, father and son were reunited. In the hospital courtyard, beneath the same tree where Nina often sat during her lunch breaks, Michael ran into Daniel's arms, and the silence that had once filled their lives shattered into laughter and tears. Daniel thanked Nina with a hug so tight she thought her ribs would crack, but she didn't mind, because for the first time in years someone had truly seen her, not just as a tired nurse or a poor employee, but as a human being who changed lives with nothing more than compassion and time. Months passed. Daniel and Michael moved into a small home together, rebuilt their life brick by brick. And Nina? She received a letter from the hospital board. They had reviewed her case, her dedication, and her role in the patient's recovery. They promoted her to head nurse, doubled her salary, and offered to pay for her advanced studies if she wanted to continue. But that wasn't the best part. The best part came one rainy afternoon when Michael visited her at the hospital, holding a handmade thank you card and a small toy plane. "My dad said, 'You're the reason he can smile again,'" he said. "So this is for you. It's the one I lost. I found it in our old storage box." Nina choked on her tears. She kept that plane on her desk forever, and whenever a new patient came in, quiet or broken or lost, she'd sit by their bed and say, "Hi, I'm Nurse Nina, and I'm not leaving just yet." Because sometimes all it takes to break the silence is someone willing to stay.